From the outside, Kandi Burruss looks like a woman who has it all. She's a Grammy-winning songwriter, a breakout star of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, a successful entrepreneur, a devoted mother, and one-fourth of the legendary 90s R&B group Xscape. Her life appears perfect. She has a beautiful family, a loving marriage, thriving businesses, and a net worth of nearly $30 million. To most people, she's living a dream that seems untouchable. But behind the bright lights, the red carpets, and the glamorous lifestyle is a story that very few truly know. Kandi has faced devastating heartbreaks, family tragedies, failed relationships, public feuds, and painful losses that she often hides behind her strong personality. How can someone who seems to have everything still carry so much pain? Today, we uncover the sad truth behind the smile of Kandi Burruss. Kandi Burruss was born in 1976 in College Park, Georgia, just outside Atlanta. From a young age, she had a spark that couldn't be ignored. At only 15 years old, she appeared on BET's Teen Summit with her R&B group Xscape in 1992. At the time, the group had 5 members, including Kandi, Tamika Tiny Cottle, sisters Latasha and Tamika Scott, and a girl named Tamara Coggins. In an old clip Kandi later shared online, the teenage girls performed a soulful cover of En Vogue's Hold On. Even back then, Kandi stood out. She had a distinct voice, a confidence beyond her years, and a natural stage presence. It wasn't long before music executives noticed them. Xscape signed a record deal, and in 1993, they released their debut album Hummin' Comin' At Ya. The album was an instant success, going platinum and climbing to number 3 on Billboard's top R&B/hip-hop albums chart. Their singles Just Kickin' It and Understanding became anthems of the era, cementing Xscape as one of the most important girl groups of the 90s. Kandi's voice, along with her sharp ear for melodies and lyrics, helped set the group apart. For many young girls growing up in the 90s, Xscape wasn't just a band, it was the soundtrack to their lives. By 1998, Xscape broke up as the members pursued solo careers. For many artists, the end of a group marks the decline of their career. But for Kandi, it was just the beginning of something even bigger. She quickly transitioned into songwriting, and her pen proved just as powerful as her voice. In 1999, she co-wrote TLC's iconic No Scrubs. The song became a worldwide hit and an anthem for independent women, topping the charts and dominating radio stations. She didn't stop there. Destiny's Child recorded Bills, 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 another track co-written by Kandi, which shot straight to number 1. She also wrote for artists like Pink, Mariah Carey, Alicia Keys, and Usher. Her work was so impactful that years later, when Ed Sheeran released Shape of You, many fans noticed similarities to No Scrubs. The resemblance was so strong that Kandi and her co-writers received official credit on one of the biggest pop hits of the decade. Even if people didn't know her name, they were singing and dancing to her words. But while her writing career soared, her journey as a solo artist was less successful. She released music in the early 2000s, but none of her albums matched the success of Xscape or the hits she created for others. Still, Kandi never gave up on performing. In 2020, she appeared on The Masked Singer as the Night Angel. Week after week, she stunned the audience with her powerhouse vocals, eventually winning the entire season. She released the single Used to Love Me afterward, proving once again that she was still a force in the music world. Yet behind the confidence and resilience, Kandi carried deep pain. Before the fame, before the fortune, before reality TV, Kandi faced one of the hardest moments of her life. In 1991, when she was only 15 years old, tragedy struck. Her older brother, Patrick Riley, was just 22 when he died in a car accident while vacationing in Mexico. Patrick wasn't just her brother, he was her protector, her hero, and the person who always believed in her. Losing him left a hole in Kandi's heart that never fully healed. The day after his death, she went back to school, trying to bury the pain in routine. But deep down, her world had changed forever. Years later, Kandi revealed that Patrick had been a peacemaker in their family and even in her early career. She believed that Xscape might have stayed together longer if her brother had still been around to help guide her. She rarely talks about him in interviews, but she finds quiet ways to honor him. Many believe she named her daughter Riley as a tribute to Patrick's memory. On one rare occasion, Kandi shared a throwback photo of herself with Patrick on Instagram, writing, "Happy birthday to my brother Patrick. He was the best big brother ever. I sometimes think about what he would be doing if he were still alive. I still miss him." Her words revealed a grief that never left her, even decades later. Years after losing Patrick, Kandi was faced with another devastating loss. In 2009, her ex-fiancé, Ashley A.J. Jewell, was killed in a fight outside a strip club in Atlanta. The two had ended their engagement just a few months earlier, but his sudden death was a shock that left Kandi shattered. According to police reports, A.J. got into a fight in the parking lot, was struck in the head, and later died from his injuries. What made it even harder was the fact that Kandi had spoken to him just the day before. She shared her heartbreak on Twitter at the time. "I don't feel like talking right now. I don't want to be hugged and told everything will be fine. I just want to cry myself to sleep by myself." Their relationship had been complicated, but the love and emotional connection remained. And on top of her grief, Kandi also thought about A.J.'s 6 children, who had lost their father. She had grown close to them during their relationship, making his death even harder to bear. To make matters worse, around the same time, Kandi also lost her beloved uncle Ralph Leslie, who she described as one of her biggest supporters. The back-to-back losses felt unbearable. As if she hadn't been through enough, tragedy struck again in December 2018. Just 2 days after Christmas, Kandi shared on Instagram that her Aunt Hazel had passed away. She wrote, "I lost my Aunt Hazel this morning. Why do we always seem to lose people we care about around the holidays? Please pray for my family." The loss left her devastated. Her mother, Joyce, was the youngest of 14 siblings, but by then, only 5 were still alive. Each passing left the family a little smaller and the holidays a little harder. For Kandi, Aunt Hazel represented tradition, family history, and the recipes and memories that made Sunday dinners so special. Losing her wasn't just losing a relative, it was losing another piece of her foundation. Still, Kandi honored her family's legacy by building something new with her mother and aunts, their restaurant, the Old Lady Gang. Serving soul food recipes passed down through generations, the restaurant became a living tribute to the women who shaped her. On The Real Housewives of Atlanta, one of the most talked about storylines has always been the tension between Kandi's mother, Mama Joyce, and her husband, Todd Tucker. Mama Joyce has never been shy about voicing her opinions, especially when it comes to Kandi's love life. From the beginning, she made it clear she didn't trust Todd, accusing him of being with Kandi for her money and success. She even spread rumors that Todd had been raised by a pimp and a prostitute, claims that caused a heated feud with Todd's late mother, Sharon Wells. Sadly, Sharon passed away from a stroke in 2014, never fully reconciling with Mama Joyce. The tension left a shadow over Kandi and Todd's marriage. Despite the drama, Kandi and Todd pressed forward. But the tug-of-war between her mother's disapproval and her love for her husband created emotional strain that played out in front of the cameras and the public. When Kandi and Todd welcomed their son Ace in 2016, it was a joyful moment. But the journey to expanding their family wasn't easy. Kandi had uterine fibroids, non-cancerous growths that made pregnancy difficult and dangerous. She went through IVF to conceive Ace, but when she and Todd tried for another baby, the complications grew. Ultimately, the couple made the emotional decision to use a surrogate. For Kandi, it was a painful choice. She admitted that it was hard to accept that she couldn't carry her own child, even though she knew it was the safest path. In November 2019, their daughter Blaze was born via surrogacy, a blessing that completed their family. But the experience reminded Kandi once again that joy often comes with sacrifice. When we see Kandi Burruss on stage, on reality TV, or running her businesses, she looks like a woman who never lets anything stop her. But her story shows that even the strongest people carry heavy burdens. She has lost her brother, her fiancé, beloved family members, and faced public attacks on her marriage. Yet she continues to build, to love, and to fight for her dreams. Her life is proof that success doesn't erase pain. Wealth doesn't take away grief. And strength doesn't mean you never cry, it means you find the courage to keep going even when you're broken inside. Kandi Burruss's life looks picture perfect from the outside. The big house, the loving family, the successful businesses, the red carpets, and the glittering awards. But when you look deeper, her story is really about strength, survival, and finding light even after walking through some very dark places. When Kandi and Todd welcomed their daughter Blaze through surrogacy, it was a huge moment for their family. They had already been through so many struggles with fertility and health, so holding that little girl felt like a blessing. But Kandi was open about how complicated the journey was. Surrogacy is not easy. For Kandi, it was emotional because she felt disconnected at times. She wasn't carrying her baby herself, and that weighed heavily on her heart. She admitted that it made her feel left out of the process. She couldn't feel the kicks, she couldn't see the baby bump growing, and she couldn't share those small milestones that most mothers get. Yet, through all of that, her love never wavered. And even though one of the embryos didn't survive, Kandi reminded herself to be grateful. She focused on the blessing of Blaze, choosing hope over heartbreak. That choice, finding gratitude in pain, says a lot about who she is as a woman. But Kandi's battles didn't end there. Throughout her career, she's faced betrayal, rumors, and character attacks that would break most people. Her own group member, someone she once considered a sister, spread lies that could have ruined her career. Then years later, on Real Housewives of Atlanta, her own castmates accused her of unthinkable things, accusations so damaging they nearly destroyed her reputation. Those moments weren't just television drama, they were painful real-life experiences that tested Kandi's spirit. And yet, every single time, she came back stronger. She turned lies into motivation, betrayal into boundaries, and heartbreak into lessons. Her personal life has also been far from easy. Losing her brother at such a young age shaped her forever. Losing her ex-fiancé to violence left her devastated. Watching her mother clash with her husband tested her marriage in ways most couples could never imagine. On top of that, being a mother while balancing fame, business, and public judgment added even more weight. Still, Kandi never folded. She chose to keep moving, keep creating, and keep fighting for her happiness. That's the side of Kandi people don't always see. Yes, she's a businesswoman, a Grammy-winning songwriter, a Broadway producer, and a reality star. But she's also a woman who has cried herself to sleep, who has questioned whether people truly loved her, and who has carried grief quietly while smiling for the cameras. Her strength doesn't come from a perfect life, it comes from surviving an imperfect one. What makes Kandi's story even more powerful is how she turned her pain into power. She built businesses that not only provide for her family but also honor her roots, like the Old Lady Gang restaurant inspired by her mother and aunts. She took her creativity from the recording studio to the Broadway stage, producing plays that made history. She raised her children with love and honesty, making sure they know her story, the good and the bad, so they understand what it took for her to get here. Even now, after leaving the Real Housewives of Atlanta following 14 seasons, Kandi's career is thriving. She's breaking Broadway records, working on music, expanding her restaurants, and supporting her daughter Riley as she steps into the spotlight. Kandi has proven that she's more than just a reality star, she's a true mogul, a mother, and an inspiration. But above all, her story reminds us of something bigger: success doesn't mean you're free from pain. You can have money, fame, and recognition, but still cry behind closed doors. You can be loved by millions and still feel the sting of betrayal from someone close. You can achieve your dreams but still carry scars from the past. Kandi Burruss is proof that life will test you, sometimes in ways that feel unbearable. But she's also proof that you can survive those tests, rise above the noise, and create a legacy that outshines the darkness. Her journey isn't just about awards or business deals, it's about resilience, forgiveness, and refusing to let other people's lies define her truth. It's about showing her children what strength looks like. It's about honoring the people she's lost by living fully for the time she's been given. So the next time you see Kandi Burruss smiling on stage, winning an award, or celebrating with her family, remember that the smile comes with a story. A story of loss, betrayal, heartbreak, and survival. A story that proves that behind every strong woman is a history of battles no one else could see. And maybe that's the greatest truth about Kandi. She doesn't just shine because of her success. She shines because she's walked through the fire and refused to let it burn her down. She shines because she found strength in places where most people would have given up. Kandi Burruss isn't just a star, she's a survivor. And that's what makes her story one worth remembering. Kandi Burruss's story is not just about fame, money, or the glitz of reality television. It's about endurance. It's about the strength of a woman who has been knocked down, betrayed, criticized, and lied about, yet somehow always finds the strength to rise again. From the very beginning, Kandi knew what it felt like to fight for her place. She entered the music industry as a teenager, becoming part of Xscape when most kids her age were still trying to figure out who they were. She wasn't born into privilege. She wasn't given a golden path. She worked for everything she earned. That early training prepared her for the storms that would come later. But even with her strength, no one is immune to pain. The loss of one of the embryos during her Xscape's pregnancy was a crushing reminder that joy and heartbreak can live side by side. She had to smile through the grief, celebrate the child she was blessed with, and quietly mourn the one she lost. For anyone watching from the outside, it might have looked like Kandi had it all together. But the truth is, behind closed doors, she was battling emotions that most people could never understand. That's what makes her story so human. Even though she's a celebrity, her struggles are not that different from ours. Her honesty about surrogacy opened doors for many women. Kandi admitted that she felt disconnected from the process: no baby bump to show, no kicks to feel, no milestones to hold on to. It was something that could make any mother feel left out, but she chose to be transparent. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't pretend everything was perfect. And that honesty touched people deeply. Women all over the world who have walked the path of infertility, surrogacy, or pregnancy loss saw themselves in Kandi. She gave a voice to a struggle many hide in silence. But life didn't only test her in motherhood. The betrayals in her career cut her just as deep. When Tamika Scott accused her of having an affair with Michael Malden, it wasn't just gossip, it was a stab to the heart. This wasn't a rumor spread by a stranger. It came from someone Kandi once loved like family. Someone she sang with, toured with, and trusted with her dreams. And that made the wound even harder to heal. Years later, even after Tamika apologized, the damage was still there. People still whispered, still brought up the lie, still tried to reduce Kandi's success to a scandal. And that's the part that hurts the most, when your hard work is overshadowed by someone else's attempt to tear you down. Yet, Kandi didn't fold. She kept building. She kept moving forward. She refused to let the rumor define her legacy. And then came the darkest chapter: Phaedra Parks spreading the lie that Kandi and her husband Todd planned to drug Portia Williams and take her to a so-called sex dungeon. For Kandi, that was more than betrayal. That was character assassination. In a world where reputations are fragile, where headlines can destroy careers, being accused of something as vile as drugging and assault could have ended everything she worked for. What made it worse was that the accusation didn't come from an enemy. It came from a woman who once called herself her friend. A castmate. Someone who smiled in her face but whispered poison behind her back. Kandi broke down on camera, her voice trembling as she explained how damaging the rumors were. For her, it wasn't just about clearing her name, it was about protecting her brand, her businesses, and most importantly, her children. Imagine being a mother and knowing your kids might grow up hearing strangers call you something as ugly as a predator. That's a weight no one should have to carry. But once again, Kandi survived it. The truth came out. Phaedra lost her place on the show, but Kandi kept going. She turned pain into purpose, betrayal into power. Instead of letting the lies destroy her, she used them as fuel to keep building her empire. Through it all, Kandi had another battle brewing: the absence of her daughter Riley's father, Block. For years, she carried the weight of being both parents, making sacrifices, working non-stop, and holding back tears as Riley faced the same heartbreak she once felt growing up without a father. When Block walked away, she didn't beg. She didn't chase him. She stood firm and told him, "You'll need her before she needs you." That sentence alone summed up her strength. She wasn't just raising a child, she was raising a strong, independent young woman who would know her worth, no matter who walked out of her life. And that's the beauty of Kandi Burruss's story. No matter what life threw at her, loss, betrayal, lies, or abandonment, she kept moving forward. She built businesses, created music, invested in theater, and even made her way to Broadway. While others tried to tear her down, she focused on building up. That's why today, people don't just see her as a reality star. They see her as a mogul, a businesswoman, a leader, and a mother who fought through it all. Her decision to leave the Real Housewives of Atlanta after 14 seasons was another powerful move. For years, the show brought her fame, drama, and business opportunities, but it also came with tears, broken friendships, and personal attacks. Walking away wasn't easy. But for Kandi, it was about growth. It was about knowing when to close a chapter and open a new one. And the success that followed proved it was the right decision.